Hello, BookTube, and welcome on this cursed Sunday to my chapter-by-chapter read-through of J.R.R. Tolkien's masterpiece, The Lord of the Rings. I started this whole read-through with The Two Towers, and I moved on to The Return of the King. Now we've circled around to the beginning of this book, to the first part of it, The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm hoping that somebody can make that right in a playlist down the line, or maybe I can learn how to do that, so I'm not all that worried that I didn't start it in order. In a few years, we'll do this again, and I'll start it at the very beginning. But we are now we are finishing up the Council of Elrond. One of the most important chapters in The Lord of the Rings, and one of my favorite chapters in all of fantasy literature, where all of our characters who are involved in the rise of the Dark Lord Sauron and his quest for the One Ring that was his in ages past, all of the characters who are directly concerned with that, who have the ability to take to the road, have found themselves in the same place at the same time. They've found themselves at Rivendell, the citadel of the Elf Lord Elrond. They're all there, although, as Elrond says, they're all here, although he didn't summon them. There's a little bit of ambiguity there, because he also talks about summoning people. But they're all there, and since they're all there, we have the ring bearer, Frodo the Hobbit. We have the previous ring bearer, Bilbo the Hobbit. We have the Frodo's servant, Sam. We have their young friends, Merry and Pippin, two other hobbits. We have a delegation of elves, including Legolas, the son of King Thranduil of the Greenland elves. We have Glóin, one of the dwarves from The Hobbit, and his son Gimli, who are emissaries from the dwarves. We have men, a whole group of men, not only Aragorn, son of Arathorn, who is deeply involved personally. He's grown up in Rivendell. He's in love with Elrond's daughter. But also he is a ranger. He's one of the Dunedain, who are the last remnants of the men of Númenor in Middle-earth. And Aragorn himself is not just a remnant. He is the rightful king, through bloodline, of Middle-earth. He's the rightful king of men, of the king of the West. He's the king of Gondor. And from the kingdom of Gondor, which has no king and needs no king, comes a proud man named Boromir, who is the son of the steward of Gondor, and who's also come looking for answers to Rivendell. And there's also the wizard Gandalf, who escaped from captivity. He was captured by another wizard, by the wizard Saruman. And all of them come together at the nick of time in Rivendell all together. Frodo comes close to dying. Gandalf escapes from Saruman's clutches at Orthanc by a whisper, by coincidence. All of these other characters have faced peril. Boromir has faced who knows what perils on the road from Gondor to get to Rivendell. Aragorn has faced many perils, including going right up to the gate of Mordor. They're all here. And so in the Council of Elrond, they spend all day talking about what they're going to do. They all swap stories because this is an exposition dump like no other. It's designed to bring not only the reader up to speed, but all the characters up to speed. All of them have different fragments of what's going on, including the fragment that Gandalf gives during his segment of this story, which is to tell everyone that the ring that Frodo is showing them is the One Ring. The doom of the world, the peril of all the West, has been found and is in their keeping here at Rivendell. This is the thing that the enemy wants, and if he gets it, a darkness will fall from which there will be no dawn. So it's the most important thing in the world. And what happens, the last thing that I want to do, this part 3 of the Council of Elrond, is to talk about, now that our characters have exchanged all the information that they can exchange. Elrond has talked about the history of the ring from the moment when it was cut off of Sauron's hand, in his view, an age ago. All of them talked about its history and the strains that are being put on all of the nations. The feelers are going out from Mordor in all directions. Now that they all know all that, now that they're all on the same page exposition-wise, there stands before them what to do about the ring. That's the last thing that I want to talk about for the Council of Elrond. What do our characters talk about to do with the ring, and then what they decide to do with the ring? And first they talk about what to do about the ring and have a few choices. They can't destroy it. And for good or ill, they can't send it over the sea to the West. The West would not receive it. This is a problem from Middle-earth. It's for Middle-earth to solve. But the counsel that Saruman gave in the Council of the Wise to the White Council was, don't worry about it. The ring was lost an age ago. It fell into the Anduin River and has rolled out to the sea. It's long gone. It won't be seen again until the world is broken and remade and the seas are emptied. So no one can get it. It's not just that Sauron can. Gandalf rejects that idea because you don't know for sure. This is our problem. We should deal with this. Instead of making it some other age's problem, we should deal with it ourselves if we can. But you can't destroy it by any, forges that the elves have, by swords or axes or stones or anything like that. You can't hide it because the Dark Lord knows that it's been found and will stop at nothing to get it back. You can't send it over the sea to the west, and you can't ignore it. So what do you do with it? And we have one possibility comes up, because keep in mind, all these characters have learned something new today. No one has known everything, except maybe Gandalf. No one has known everything. And one of the things that some of the characters have learned about is that, of course, in telling their adventures, Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin talk about Tom Bombadil. This weird character that they encounter who is able to command everything around him. Barrow wights, the physical architecture of the barrow itself, the wild, sentient old trees. He's able to just command them all, and they instantly obey. He even seems to be able to command the ring. And so naturally, in the course of this conversation, his name comes back up. I want to read you that passage because I really like it. This is Elrond talking about, he talks about the treason of Saruman. But he talks about other things too. He says, the Barrow-wights we know by many names, and the old forest many tales have been told. All that now remains is but an outlier of the northern march. Time was when a squirrel could go from tree to tree from what is now the Shire to Dunland west of Isengard. In those lands I journeyed once, and in many things wild and strange I knew, but I had forgotten Bombadil, if indeed this is still the same that walked the woods and hills long ago, and even then was older than the old. That was not his name then. Eowar Benadir we called him, oldest and fatherless. But many another name he has had since given by other folk, Forn by the dwarves, Orld by the northern men, and many other names besides. He is a strange creature, but maybe I should have summoned him to our council. And Gandalf says he would not have come. Could we not still send messages to him to obtain his help? Said Erestor. It seems to me that he has power even over the ring. No, I should not put it so, said Gandalf. Say rather that the ring has no power over him. He is his own master. But he cannot alter the ring itself, nor break its power over others. And now he is withdrawn into a little land within the bounds he has set, though none can see them, waiting perhaps for a change of days, and he will not step beyond them. But within those bounds nothing seems to dismay him, said Erestor. Would not he take the ring and keep it there, forever harmless? No, said Gandalf, not willingly. He might do so if all the free folk of the world begged him. But he would not understand the need, and if he were given the ring, he would soon forget it, or most likely throw it away. Such things have no hold on his mind. He would be a most unsafe guardian, and that alone is answer enough. But in any case, said Glorfindel, to send the ring to him would only postpone the day of evil. He is far away. We could not now take it back to him, unguessed, unmarked by any spy. And even if we could, sooner or late the Lord of the Rings would learn of its hiding place and bend all his power towards it. Could that power be defied by Bombadil alone? I think not. I think that in the end, if all else is conquered, Bombadil will fall, last as he was first, and then night will come. I know little of Eowyn save the name, said Galdor, but Glorfindel, I think, is right. Power to defy our enemy is not in him, unless such power is in the earth itself. And yet we see that Sauron can torture and destroy the very hills. What power still remains lies with us, here in Imladris, that's Rivendell, or with Círdan in the Havens, or in Lorien. But have they the strength? Have we here the strength to withstand the enemy, the coming of Sauron at last, when all else is overthrown? I have not the strength, said Elrond. Neither have they. And that, that brings things to the nub. Well, okay, Bombadil was sort of the last hope. He seems like an X factor that we haven't accounted for. The ring has no power over him. And nothing seems to bother him inside of his own little lands. Maybe we could send it to him. But no, they decide quite rightly that would be foolish. It would be known, and suddenly Sauron would forget about the rest of them until he was done conquering Bombadil. And we don't know that would happen. We have no idea. Bombadil himself says that he definitely regards the Nine Riders as a formidable peril outside of his own lands or in them. So it's wise that this council, the Council of Elrond, decides against that. But if they decide against that, then what is their only option? There's one way to destroy the ring. Elrond has already said it. earlier in the Council of Elrond. It can be destroyed in the fires of Erodrin, the fires of Mount Doom, from where it was forged. Those fires can destroy it. Not dragon fire, not any normal fire, not any kinds of instruments of men or elves or dwarves, but that will destroy it. Which means that the quest that must now be undertaken from Rivendell is to walk the ring into the stronghold of Sauron in order to destroy it. Into the stronghold that we presume is guarded absolutely impregnably. There doesn't seem to be any other way to do it. And Frodo volunteers. Famous moment made famous in Peter Jackson's movie. Frodo volunteers to do it. And a fellowship is elected. So now we've decided on what the plan is. Let's talk a little before we end the Council of Elrond on whether or not that should be the plan. Because as I've said before, when it comes to the conclusion of the Council of Elrond, the conclusion of the Council of Elrond is the forming of the Fellowship of the Ring. Elrond seems to like the idea that since there are 9 riders, there should be 9 walkers, that the Fellowship should consist of 9 people. And by the end of the chapter, those 9 are elected. We get our roster. Of course, Frodo is going to continue to be the ring bearer, and Sam, his servant, is going with him. Merry and Pippin insist on going along. These 2 little hobbits, they insist on going along. In addition to those 4, we have 5 others. We have Gandalf the Wizard, who of course knows all about this, and you want him to be there. We have Aragorn. We have Boromir from Gondor, whose path, he's going back to Gondor, so their path lies together for many leagues. And you want representatives from the other free peoples. So Legolas, the son of King Thranduil, will go along to represent the elves. And Gimli, son of Glóin, will go along to represent the dwarves. That is the Fellowship of the Ring that leads itself out, along with the unofficial 10th member, Bill the Pony. They lead themselves out they are going to leave Rivendell on this quest to bring the ring to Mordor. And as I've commented many times before, to friends when there was no internet, to friends before there was a YouTube, and also on YouTube, Elrond's decision that the ring should be brought to Mordor by a fellowship of 9 walkers to counterbalance the 9 riders is the decision of an author of a fantasy novel. It's not the decision a character in his actual position would take. It's the decision that an author would take. I like that symmetry. In the Council of Elrond, the point is made, and it's well made, that there aren't enough forces anywhere in Middle-earth of men or elves combined with dwarves to assault Mordor directly by force. That is off the table. Sauron has an absolutely unbeatable numerical advantage. He has the physical materiel and the people and the monsters and the equipment and whatnot to beat any frontal assault. So of course, what's going to go out from Rivendell is not going to be a platoon of any kind. Of course, the company will be small. It doesn't have to be 9. That's Tolkien's decision. That would not be Elrond's decision. And also, it wouldn't be this. It wouldn't be this fellowship. I mean, come on. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be this fellowship. You would send other people. Almost all of it would be different. Now, I'm not for the minute going to harp on who is at the Council of Elrond and what's going on here. I've never understood this. I've never understood who shows up at the Council of Elrond, whether they've been summoned or not. I know that Legolas is a fan favorite character, but why is he here? Why is Legolas here instead of Thranduil? The elves are immortal, but they are youthful. They are eternally young. They are eternally in the prime of their health. And travel in the east of Middle-earth is still possible, without many dangers. If hobbits and Aragorn could get all the way from the Shire to Rivendell in the face of concerted opposition from the 9 riders themselves in one piece, then King Thranduil, with an entourage, could make it to Rivendell to talk about this and to extend his experience. Also, we have no emissaries from Lórien. Why isn't Galadriel here? This is the ultimate peril of the age. Why hasn't she come from Lórien to be here? You might say, it's her ring that is protecting Lórien, and that therefore she's sort of stuck there. I don't know. I think the appendices of this book kind of put the lie to that, but okay, maybe. That doesn't. She has several elf lords of immense power at Lórien who could come in her stead. Why isn't Círdan of the Havens here? He would have had to take practically the same route that Frodo and his friends took, just a few hundred more miles. Why isn't he here? Did he send an emissary instead of coming himself? Under the assumption here that these elf lords get more powerful the older and grander they are. So, sure, an emissary from Galadriel would have power, but Galadriel herself has far more power. Why aren't they here? And even if they aren't here, okay, so they send their emissaries. Okay, even if they aren't here, why on earth would you make a fellowship like this? The only reason you would do it is if you were an author making a fellowship that was going to be good for a story down the line. You wouldn't do this otherwise. Merry and Pippin famously say that you'll have to tie us up in gunny sacks to keep us from going. Well, in the real world of this book, Elrond would do that. He would imprison them so that they don't go. They are completely useless. They're the size of children. They know nothing about the world. They have nothing to contribute, neither does Sam. Maybe if you want to keep this semi-mystical falderall about how the ring bearer has been chosen by the ring and Frodo has to go, I don't believe that at all. Aragorn could have borne the ring to Mordor and been a lot better at it. But, okay, Frodo does fine. You've still got some openings here. You've still got some openings. Even if you keep it to 9. I say you wouldn't keep it to 9. 15 is every bit as small as 9. And look what that would allow you to do. Glorfindel, who was mentioned quoted in that passage, is one of the elves of great power in Elrond's household. Glorfindel has already killed a Balrog on his own. He's millennia old, immensely powerful elf lord. There are plenty of others here in Elrond's household who are immensely powerful. The emissary that Círdan sends is far older, far more powerful, and far more capable and experienced in every way than Legolas. Legolas himself admits that he has not traveled widely. He's not traveled outside of his father's realm. So why not send that elf? And if you're going to bridle because you love the story of Lord of the Rings, as I do, why not send him in addition to Legolas instead of Legolas? It makes no sense to me at all. And probably the thing that makes the least sense of all to me, the thing that's always bothered me about this chapter is, what about Radagast? Radagast the Brown, Radagast the Bird Tamer, is another wizard. He's another wizard in Middle-earth. And it's not like he travels much. Gandalf says that himself. We know where to find him. And he is not engaged. He is not doing anything. Why isn't he at the Council of Elrond? And why doesn't he go on the Fellowship? Surely any fellowship to get the ring to Mordor would be better off with 2 wizards than 1. I don't understand that. I think the only explanation that you can make to explain, to defend the makeup of the Fellowship of the Ring that is decided on in the Council of Elrond is that it makes for a good book. But that should not be your rationale inside the book itself. I don't think there's any other rationale. The only way you can explain this is that it makes for a good book. And of course, we Lord of the Rings fans know, it is going to make a great book. But in terms of getting the ring to Mordor safely, in terms of increasing your likelihood of success, well, if you don't break apart the Fellowship, then you all get to Gondor with Boromir alive. And if all of that happens, like as not, Faramir is there when you get to Gondor. And if Faramir is alive, when you might say, well, there are all sorts of things that break up the Fellowship. What about the Balrog? Glorfindel has already beaten the Balrog at once. Here it would be him and Gandalf against this Balrog. Or him and Gandalf and Erestor and Galdor and Radagast. I think the Balrog would probably be beaten without any loss of life. You get all the way to Gondor with all these characters. If they were all there, then a marauding band of orcs sent by Saruman would not have split the Fellowship. If they were all there, when they get to Gondor, if Faramir is there, well, okay, you might be saying you need the hobbits along because it's through bumbling happenstance that Sam and Frodo learn a back door into Mordor that is unguarded. You need that. You can't get through the Black Gates directly. Well, Faramir knows that route. And he might, if he's in Gondor, then you join him to the Fellowship. What's 18 instead of 17? It bothers me. It always has bothered me. I know that I'm howling into the wind here because if that were done, we would have a radically less interesting book. I'm willing to admit that. So that is the Council of Elrond. That is what ends up happening here. Our characters talk about the storyline that we are encountering because they are living in it. What do we do about this? They weigh all of their options and decide, foolishly, I think, to send a very small and almost helpless civilian party into the heart of their enemy with the thing the enemy wants the most. And that is where we will take up this story next time. So I'll wrap this up for now, and we will continue on with the next chapter next time. Thank you, Book 2.